Hello and welcome to Tech Deals. May the 4th be with you. Star Wars Jedi Survivor is here with a comparison between two excellent CPUs, the Ryzen 7 2700X and the Ryzen 7 5800X 3D, using an appropriate graphics card, the new RTX 4070. We are not using a 4090 here, despite this really being a CPU comparison, because a 4090 is really an inappropriate graphics card for something on the AM4 platform. You want to be on AM5 or LGA 1700 if you're going that route. I think for $600, that's a good deal. Or there's AMD cards, but that's not what this test is about. Do you have an AM4 system? Do you have a 1700X? Do you have a 2700X? Do you even have a 3700X? Heaven forbid do you have any of the Ryzen 3 or Ryzen 5 chips. A Ryzen 7 5700X, 5800X 3D, or 5900X is a drop-in upgrade, make sure you update your BIOS first, that gives you a substantial performance increase, and it is a gift that keeps on giving thanks to AMD's AM4 platform. In 2017, when Ryzen first launched, I reviewed it, and I said at the time it was the most important CPU launch of the past 10 years.
This is quite possibly one of the most important desktop processor launches in 10 years.
Thanks, Intel, for years and years of 4-core CPUs. The first and second generation of Ryzen CPUs, 1000 and 2000 respectively, were amazing for their time. AMD was giving you 8 cores for the price of Intel's 4. Of course, it didn't take Intel very long to rectify that, and of course, AMD has made improvements since. Many of my viewers, I have seen many comments down below, have talked about how much they've enjoyed their Ryzen 5 1600 or Ryzen 7 2700X. If you have such a system, you've enjoyed years of relatively good performance. Those years are rapidly coming to an end. Even the mighty 2700X, 8 cores and 16 threads, 4.2 gigahertz, overclockable, is really not all that in 2023. But you have an AM4 platform and you can do a drop-in CPU upgrade to something like this 5800X 3D. Now, I have received many comments from people saying, should I really upgrade my system or should I just keep it for a few more years? Do I have to go to AM5? Do I have to buy Raptor Lake? Well, those are faster. Make no mistake about it. A 13700K or a 7700X is faster than either of these. But that entails an entirely new PC build or complete replacement of the motherboard. This is a 5-minute upgrade. You might need a better cooler, but probably not. If you've got a decent cooler for a 2700X, you're fine. If you have the original stock cooler on a 1600 or 2600, yeah, you'll need to buy a new cooler. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about Star Wars Jedi Survivor 1440p, 5 different detail settings on this video card on these CPUs. How much of a difference at 1440p, including with ray tracing on a new mid-level 600R graphics card does it really make? Let's find out, shall we? Buy Windows 10 Professional for $15, activate instantly online with Microsoft, and keep it forever. Don't pay full price. Get the best deal from our sponsor, URCD Keys, using our link in the video description below. Full details on how this amazing deal works at the end of the video. The format of this video is going to be extremely straightforward. On one side of the screen is going to be the Ryzen 7 2700X, and on the other side of the screen is going to be the 5800X 3D. 5 detail settings, and we've got charts as well. Now, this game does not have a built-in benchmark, so we had to play it in live gameplay. And because of the lack of a manual save system, it makes doing so challenging. We did make sure to play both in caverns and underground areas as well as in the open world on all the various detail settings because they do perform quite differently. Now, there's ray tracing on and off with high detail. Low and medium is ray tracing off, epic is on. How well does it perform? Let's find out. Our first test is at epic detail with ray tracing on. Again, this is 1440p. 2700X on the left, 5800X 3D on the right. The 2700X is CPU bottlenecking the 4070, even at 1440p, even with epic detail ray tracing on. The 5800X 3D is not. If you look at the GPU usage, you'll see the 4070 is 100% used, but you'll see it's not at all 100% used over on the 2700X. Now, I'm not going to show you a ton of footage from Epic Detail because, frankly, a 4070 will not run this game very well no matter what CPU you have installed. It is not holding an average of 60 frames per second, even on the 5800X 3D. I know a lot of people are not going to want to hear this, but an RTX 4070 for $600 is not a play anything at maximum detail 1440p card, even at launch. Now, before you all start leaving comments down below, please do leave comments that boost engagement. This is a newly launched console port. It really isn't that well optimized. It will improve with time. However, even if the frame rates go up 10 or 20 frames per second after 6 months of patches, it still demonstrates that a newly released card on a newly released game cannot maintain 60 frames per second. It's the exception, not the rule. Most games will run at 1440p just fine. But if you're buying a video card for 2 years or more of gaming performance, this is why a 4070 is really kind of a 1080p card, and it's kind of sad. Here's the chart for Epic Detail. No surprises here. 55 frames per second average with a 40 in the 1% low on the 5800X 3D. The 2700X, no. Moving right along to high detail with ray tracing on, this looks much better, but it's very deceptive because we are indoors and this game runs completely differently indoors than it does outdoors. I will show you outdoors in just a minute. Now, the average frame rate here isn't too far off. The 5800X 3D still wins, but not by as much as it did at Epic. The 2700X is at nearly 60 frames per second. Going over that at times, but the graphics card is still bottlenecked. But again, indoors. When we move outside, you will notice that the frame time pacing, the 1% low, and the average frame rate on the 2700X completely falls apart. The usage on the 2700X also falls apart. We're down at 50%. The 5800X 3D is still maintaining a very good frame rate. Now, it is also not as high as it was indoors, but it's real close. So the 2700X can look really good in benchmarks depending upon what is being tested and benchmarked. But if you know what you're doing and you can show the hardest part of a game, you can really show the limitations of a 5-year-old CPU. And for those of you who lost track of time during the pandemic, yes, the 2700X is 5 years old. And here's the benchmark chart. The 5800X 3D steps up to the plate with a completely playable frame rate of 70 frames per second average, 52 in the 1% low. That's a mix of indoor and outdoor play. The 2700X at 36 average with 19 1% low. Yes, it's playable, but I wouldn't want to. Really, it just can't keep up with this modern game and an amazing graphics card. Moving right along to high detail ray tracing off, you will notice the 2700X has a nice performance pickup. We are outdoors in the open, and while it is not 60 frames per second, it at least is playable. Not ideal, but playable. Interestingly enough, the 5800X 3D gains about 10% performance when you turn ray tracing off, but the 2700X gains 20%. It really does make a difference with an older CPU to turn the extra detail settings off. Moving along to the chart, you'll see we have a nice 7 frame per second gain on the 5800X 3D, and we have a 12 frame per second gain on the 2700X. Considering the 2700X started at a much lower number, that is a much higher percentage gain. Turning ray tracing off on a marginal CPU really does make a difference. Moving right along to medium detail, ray tracing off, oh boy, do I have some things to say here. First of all, if you have to play new AAA games at medium detail 1440p on a $600 graphics card, something's broken. It might be the game. Actually, it's probably the game. It might be NVIDIA's pricing. It might be just the universe doesn't like us this year. Regardless, something's broken. I don't recommend that you buy a $600 card to play at medium detail, but here it is for science. We also have our first CPU bottleneck on the 5800X 3D. Notice that we are not at 100% utilization. It's really close. It's around 90%. Sometimes it's 85, sometimes it's 95, but we are being bottlenecked. So this is about as fast as the game is likely to ever run on a 5800X 3D, even if you gave the game a 4090. On the other hand, the Ryzen 7 2700X is struggling to even use 50% of the RTX 4070. It is still severely CPU bottlenecked here. Now, it is running faster than it did at high detail, but not much so. In fact, we're only averaging about 50 frames per second, which is not much higher, and the graphics quality definitely took a turn for the worse. If frame rate's important to you, the 108 frames per second average on the 5800X 3D is a definite improvement over high detail. However, the 52 frames per second on the 2700X is not. That is only a 4 frame per second gain. Really kind of depressing, all things considered. How about low detail ray tracing off? Yes, on a $600 graphics card, but it's for science, so it's okay. The RTX 4070 is absolutely being CPU bottlenecked in both cases here, in fact, severely even on the 5800X 3D. Now, the graphics quality has taken a definite noticeable dive in terms of prettiness, shall we say. However, it is playable and it is functional even on the 2700X. The question is, across about 20 minutes of gameplay, can you average 60 frames per second on the 2700X at low detail? And the answer is no, absolutely not, but it gets real close. To be fair, a different run-through would have produced a different result. All of these are live gameplay, so it could be 55 on one run, 62 on the next, and so on. But these give you a general idea of what to expect. The 5800X 3D is legitimately twice the performance of the 2700X, at least in Star Wars Jedi Survivor in most situations. Here is a single chart showing all 5 detail settings and the average frame rates, 5800X 3D in green and 2700X in red. For sure, it's playable, and you'd get a few more frames per second if you lowered it down to 1080p on the 2700X. There's less world to generate, less graphics to generate. It would take some of the load off of the CPU, but then of course a 4070 would be kind of pointless. A 3070 would basically provide the same level of performance here, maybe not with the ray tracing, because ray tracing is more advanced on the 40 series, but if you have a 2700X, a 40 series really makes no sense. The 5800X 3D is very nice, the 4070 is very nice, Star Wars Jedi Survivor is just not very well optimized. Moving along to the 1% low chart, you will see that with high detail ray tracing on or off, the 5800X 3D is not able to maintain 60 frames per second average, although it is very close. This is probably a Jedi Survivor problem more than it is a CPU problem, and of course a 5700X or 3700X would do even worse here. You can see how bad the 2700X is, down at 28 and 19 frames per second respectively. A few months of patches may fix this, or it may not. We'll have to wait and see how that works out. Again, this is the launch version of the game. But games are going to keep getting harder to run, and the 5800X 3D, while it launched in the summer of 2022, it is still based on the Zen 3 core, which came out in 2020. In 7 months' time, it will be 2024, and this CPU will be going on a 4-year-old design. If you have one, absolutely, you can keep it for a while yet. But there is going to come a point, probably sooner than many of you want to realize, that it's due for replacement. First and second generation Ryzen have had their day. Great chips, but this is 2023, and Zen 3 exists as a drop-in upgrade. If you are still running anything from a Ryzen 5 1600 to a Ryzen 7 2700X in 2023, why? AMD has given us a gift of 4 generations of CPUs on a single platform. Update your BIOS, and if you don't want to spend the $325 that a 5800X 3D costs, you can get reasonably close to this level of performance by dropping $190 on a Ryzen 7 5700X. Let me know in the comment section below if you'd like to see 5700X versus 5800X 3D in this same game. Now that CPU is also a drop-in upgrade, and it's relatively low power, so you may not need a cooler upgrade. If you don't want to buy a cooler, the 5700X may make sense. If you multitask and run multiple monitors, you may want to consider the 5900X. But if you want the best gaming performance on AM4 and you only game and you don't mind $325, the 5800X 3D is pretty amazing. As far as video cards go, I would expect the similar or maybe a little bit better performance with AMD's RX 6800 non-XT that has 16 gigs of RAM, which is nice but doesn't really matter in this game, but you could replace that with something similar from AMD and get similar performance. The primary limitation in most of this was the CPUs, not the GPUs, so a 4090 really wouldn't make any difference here. If you like this content and you want to support the channel at no cost to you, links to the 5700X, the 5800X 3D, and the 5900X will be down in the video description below to Amazon, Newegg, and eBay. Please consider using those links when you shop. It costs you nothing extra, and we get a small commission whenever you buy something from one of those sites. Thank you all so much for watching. 2 gold stars for all of you still here. Like, comment, subscribe, do all of the YouTube things. Let me know what you think of this down in the comment section below. Now, some of you are going to ask a very important question, which I did not answer at the beginning of the video. What version of Jedi Survivor was tested? And the answer is the launch version. There has already been a patch that came out after we tested, but before you will see this video. So these tests are from the very first day 1 release of the game, not the most recent patch. Patches will improve performance, most likely. These ports these days are sort of released in a beta format, and performance does tend to improve over time. I would absolutely expect the 2700X to do better a month from now, 6 months from now, and even possibly a year from now, to a point. However, those same patches should also make the 5800X 3D run faster. So they'll both get better, but probably the gap will still stay the same. It might be interesting to do a follow-up in 6 months once there's been enough patches, but we'll have to see if this game is still popular in 6 months to see if that's worth the trouble. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I will see all of you next time. Looking for a Windows 10 or 11 product key, but you don't want to spend $100 to $200 for it? Our sponsor, URCD Keys, provides discounted Windows keys at amazing prices. $15 for Windows 10 Professional, $21 for Windows 11 Professional, and just $60 for Microsoft Office 2021 Professional Plus. These product keys are the real deal. They activate directly with Microsoft Online, link to your Microsoft account, and they work forever. For Windows, you simply go to Settings, Update and Security, Activation, click Change Product Key, paste the key provided by URCD Keys, and in seconds, you're activated with Microsoft. For Office, go to setup.office.com, sign in with your Microsoft account, paste the product key provided by URCD Keys, and then download Office 2021 Pro Plus directly from Microsoft. Remember to use the discount code TD20 to save 25% off the already deeply discounted prices and support our channel at the same time. We have been using product keys from URCD Keys for almost 5 years now without any issues and encourage you to do so as well. A reasonable graphics card for something of this caliber, at least. Damn it! Oh, my God! At first, I wouldn't believe. I was petrified. How's that song go? I will survive. We tried to sample it both up in the open outdoor stairs. If you are still running a 1st or 2nd gen Ryzen chip, dear good Lord, why? You can buy. No, I don't like that.